The incredibly flexible and advanced capabilities of the internet has certainly led us to take very mundane things for granted now. Arguably one of the greatest examples of this is our ability to Google something, to search for virtually anything we want on the internet at any time from almost any place around the world. In fact, Google accounts for over 90% of internet traffic today. In this regard, we are in a much more privileged position than our recent ancestors, because of course it wasn't always this way. But the archaic means of obtaining information on the internet back in the 90s is something to be thanked, because they serve as the building blocks for the amazing tools that we have today. They've taught us what to do and what not to do when putting together a more than capable search engine. Now, obviously, Google was not the first search engine, by any means. But before it came along, things were quite different, even if it didn't seem that way at face value. The technological bottlenecks of these early search tools wasn't the only issue. It was also an industry full of competition and business politics that created a sort of arms race for who could triumph as the leading internet search provider. And today, we're going to talk about what searching on the internet was like before Google came along, and what advantages Google had at its disposal to go from underdog to practically owning the World Wide Web. Let's go back to the beginning, in around the 1980s. Obviously, the internet at this time was structured and appeared very differently compared to now. This was before the World Wide Web even existed. Yes, although we semantically use these terms interchangeably, the World Wide Web and the internet are different things. I have talked about this in detail many times before, but the internet is the actual infrastructure of computers connected to each other that make communication possible, while the World Wide Web is more or less software that makes the information easy for everyday people like you and me to understand. But at this time, things weren't so user-friendly. The internet was kind of ugly and was just complicated code that was shown on a terminal. If you wanted to navigate to a certain part of the internet, you needed to enter some really long address that was hard to remember. It was all over the place. If you didn't know what you were doing, it was kind of a disorganized mess. This exact issue was actually often a turnoff for everyday people for even seeing the internet as a worthwhile technology. McGill University in Montreal had these exact sentiments, and they needed to do something to make the internet more appealing and tolerable to use. Well, a grad student named Alan Emtage had the task of finding files online that students would find useful. Luckily, there were a few servers that would publicly advertise their existence, and naturally, were the most popular ones on the internet at that time. So that gave Emtage a starting point for where to look for these files, and he basically had to create a list of these files and the names that they had. Obviously, this was a lot of work, so he decided to create a script that scraped all these files from these servers for him. It was a lot less tedious, and it also made this list a lot bigger in a smaller amount of time. It was also updated once a month to include new information. But then Emtage realized, instead of posting this really long list of files and how to obtain them, he could just create a program where people could type in certain keywords and it would find the files that contain said words in their file names. So he did just that. With a little help from his friends, he created Archie, which stood for archive but without the V. It was far from perfect, but it found to be incredibly useful for its time, and was deemed the internet's first official search engine. As long as you worked within the program search parameters, you could find a picture of Bill Clinton within minutes. Archie's technology relied on something called the File Transfer Protocol, or FTP for short, which was basically one of the many building blocks of the internet at this time. Because of this, Archie was only capable of searching for files. Web pages, as we understand them today, were not exactly a thing yet. But then, with this new technology, things started to quickly change. Despite a common misconception, Archie was not named after the Archie comics, but people didn't know that. So, other search engines popped up shortly after that were in fact named after Archie comic characters, like Veronica and Jughead. These search engines were made for another protocol known as Gopher, which was a popular directory system people used for the internet at the time. These search engines had a little bit more functionality. In addition to searching files, they allowed you to also search through Gopher menus and directories. Then in 1991, everything changes. The World Wide Web becomes public to the entire world. It is so innovative, well-designed, and easy to use, it puts clients like Gopher to shame. And so they died out. Rather than having to use Archie to search keywords for certain files within hundreds of directories, you could just click a hyperlink and download a file right away through something called a web page. Naturally, because all these search engines predated the World Wide Web and were not exactly well optimized for it, they quickly died out as well. But the objectives of their designs could be repurposed. Instead of files, newsgroups, and bulletin boards, what if we applied this same functionality to web pages?
Hi kids, it's me, Steven! Today we are going to navigate the World Wide Web. It's a lot of world for one man, but thankfully this is made easy through something called a search engine. It's like the Wonkavator. Just push a button and zing, you're off. Right now, I am going to search for my email. Apparently I have something very special coming in the mail today.
You got mail.
Looks like I got something now, an audio message.
Listen up. If you think you're gonna escape this, you have one thing coming. Where's Ruth? Oh, and by the way, I've been cheating on you!
It's a fake computer. We're on a TV set. Why is this here? Is quality assurance doing their job? Oh, another one. That's cool. What is it this time? A baseball bat to kick a man when he's down? It's much better than that. It's Bombas! This is the most wonderful time of the year. Of course, I'm talking about the sock season. Bombas has got you covered. They provide super comfy socks, slippers, undergarments, and other gay apparel. If you're unsure of what kind of gift someone wants, Bombas is the way to go. I was feeling a little indulgent myself and got the chunky rag calf socks and men's Sunday slippers. And when I have these on, it's like an unstoppable force versus an immovable object. I feel like $1,000,000. I'd love to see Jennifer try to take that. And Bombas has a 100% happiness guarantee and offers exchanges and returns free of charge, even if the items are damaged. Like the other day when I lit my socks on fire trying to cook eggs on the stove, I thought I was out of luck, but Bombas sent me another free pair. How great is that? Bombas also has a mission of helping others. For every purchase that is made, they donate one of their top 3 items to people experiencing homelessness. And customers have since helped donate over 150 million items to those who need it, which really is quite remarkable. New customers who visit bombas.com/nationsquid or use the code NATIONSQUID at checkout will get 20% off their purchase. Thank you to Bombas for sponsoring this video.
In 1993, JumpStation launches as a search tool that scrapes keywords from the titles and headings of websites. Very soon after, a new technology called a WebCrawler is introduced. These not only index the titles and headings, but every single bit of text on an entire web page. And so, of course, WebCrawler is released to the public in 1994, becoming the first of its kind. Now that this web crawling technology was finally discovered, it seemed that the whole search engine problem was solved, right? Ha, no. While this was an impressive technology for the time, it also created a lot of room for competition. Now, other search engines wanted to be just like WebCrawler, but even better. Alta Vista was designed to be much more user-friendly. It provides search tips, has much larger bandwidth, and uses a special technique called natural language search. Instead of just typing in individual keywords that you think might be relevant to your search, you can type it like a traditional question. On WebCrawler, you might write Korean restaurants, Burbank, California. It contains all the keywords necessary for your search query. With Alta Vista, however, you might write something like, what are the best Korean restaurants in Burbank, California? It was capable of filtering out interrogative words such as what and when, while still focusing on the keywords you provided. This was super important for people who were not experienced with computers, who were logging onto the internet, likely even for the first time. And then comes 1995, the year in which home computing exploded. Windows 95 made accessing the internet easier than ever before, thanks to products like AOL, and so the web's population skyrocketed. While these search tools were handy, many newcomers may not even know where to start. How can you search for something on the web when you don't even know what to search for. Jerry Yang and David Philo create something called Yahoo, which was a website that included a hierarchical directory system. This meant that it included, on its homepage, a list of the most popular websites divided into categories for things like news, entertainment, games, etc. As long as you knew what yahoo.com was, you could start surfing the net in no time. While Yahoo had come out just the year before, it was certainly able to benefit from this explosion in online traffic in 1995. And when they added their own search engine that very same year, this only worked in their favor. Yahoo also benefited from just being more relatable and silly, which is most important for someone who is entering an unfamiliar domain like the World Wide Web for the very first time. Lycos would then appear, providing a much larger index of search results in faster amounts of time. By this time, search engines were kind of popping up everywhere and sort of learning from each other and incorporating these same features. And so it became the new trend for search engines throughout the mid to late 90s to not focus as much on capability, but instead likability, which is what worked so much in Yahoo's favor. But the one issue for Yahoo was that the page was a little bit busy. With dial-up speeds, it can take quite a while for it to load. The website is great for visiting in moderation, especially when wanting to discover things blindly, but using it all the time wasn't the most convenient. How do we eliminate this problem, but still keep the lightheartedness of the website? Well, just ask Jeeves. This was essentially a search engine personified. Much like AltaVista, it provided natural language searching, but it was also cute, fun, and quite minimalist. Because the page wasn't too busy, it loaded much faster than websites like Yahoo, which was a huge bonus back in the 90s. It was like having your own virtual assistant. It wasn't exactly better than these other search tools, but it was more memorable, and certainly more likable. This type of shift established a clear set of written rules that websites like Yahoo were useful for web exploration, and sites like Ask Jeeves were more useful for answering more niche, specific questions. At around this time, the popularity of search engines simply relied on the user's preference. Some people preferred AltaVista because they had been using it longer, while others preferred Ask Jeeves because it was more fun. Now that the search engine realm was quite busy with all kinds of different tools, this soon started to create a very competitive space within the web. It became a sort of arms race for who can become the dominant go-to search tool. Examples of this included websites like Dogpile and Metacrawler, which basically just combined the indexes of other popular search engines like Yahoo and AltaVista all into one. While this was very convenient for showing a lot of results for a search, these websites didn't own the indexes they were using, so they couldn't exactly control their algorithms and better refine these searches. Consequently, you often got a lot of redundancies within search results. But alas, it still got them decent traffic, and was a legitimate competitive technique for the time. And of course, you had Microsoft entering the picture with MSN Search. They were also facing a bit of controversy at this time, as they were being accused of obtaining competition through more forceful means. This was all during the famous Microsoft antitrust case, where the company was under fire for allegedly intentionally hurting web browser competition, such as Netscape, so that they could give Internet Explorer leading power on the Windows platform. So Microsoft also having a search engine at this time would be quite intimidating. Outside of exposure competition, there was monetary competition as well. Companies like GoTo.com introduced something called pay-per-click, where companies could pay to have priority in search results based on certain keywords that were used. Additionally, these engines then tried emulating the style of Yahoo, becoming portal websites that also included links of categorized websites, completely forgetting about what made them so special. By the late 1990s, search engines were not only much more homogenized, but they were also much less decentralized. Many results were biased and almost pay to win, and overly busy web pages slowed down performance. They had forgotten what their target audience was. Then in 1998, another search engine enters called Google. It was named after the very large number, Google, to represent the huge amounts of information it could scrape together. At its launch, search engines were a dime a dozen, and so it wasn't particularly seen as anything special. But Google, very subtly, did two things that would completely change the game and make them, by far, the most revolutionary search tool. At this time, the industry standard for search engines was to rank results based on popularity, relative to the keywords that were used. They would also often rank results based on the number of times that keyword appeared on web pages. For example, let's say you type in the search query for Pizza Hut. With this type of ranking system, the first results would be the pages that say the phrase Pizza Hut the most. This could lead to decent results, but this could also mean that an article about the best menu items at Pizza Hut could rank at the top. I mean, it almost certainly includes the term Pizza Hut more than the Pizza Hut website does, which is likely nothing more than just a basic web page. Popularity ranked results could solve this issue, but it also leads to security issues. It wasn't uncommon for scam, impersonation websites to use bot clickers to create artificial traffic that raises them within the search results. What if instead there was a way to rank websites based on its actual quality and what people actually like? But of course, quality is subjective and entirely depends on the opinion of the individual. How do you turn qualitative data into quantitative data? Google was able to answer this question. They used a sort of referral ranking system. Instead of ranking words based on keywords or popularity, whatever website was linked the most from outside web pages would be at the top. In other words, pizzahut.com would be the first result on Google because pizzahut.com was directly linked or recommended by other websites the most. Obviously, people searching for Pizza Hut were looking for the company website so they could order a pizza. So developing a very specific way of ranking based on quality websites through online recommendation yielded much more accurate results. As a cherry on top, Google was incredibly minimalist. It was just a search bar. So loading times were much faster, and people on the internet in 1999 were already much more used to it compared to 1994. So minimalism worked in their advantage, both technologically and culturally. It was also fun, colorful, a bit cheeky, and the name was easy to remember. Google came out with something genius at the perfect time, and it quickly went from a small fry search engine to exploding as one of the most popular websites on the whole internet. And its presence has only continued to grow at astronomical levels. And although search engines experienced a period of stagnation towards the end of the 90s, it is arguably what made Google popular in the first place. It was able to learn from these mistakes, take what was normal at the time, and figure out how to make it better, light years better. And over time, Google was able to enter other business ventures that would transform it into the online empire of the following decades. If you would like to learn more about Google's history, leave a like on this video and a comment down below letting me know. I have also talked about Google's acquisition of YouTube and the events leading up to it, which you can check out here. A special thanks to all my Patreon supporters and channel members down below, patreon.com/nationsquid. And if you'd like, buying me a coffee is very much appreciated. Thank you for watching.